Topped off Thomas. It was a windy autumn day on the island of Sodor. Thomas liked windy days, and sometimes Thomas liked to race the wind. "I can go faster than you, Mr. Wind," Thomas tooted as he steamed along. Thomas had to stop at a junction. Spencer was already there. Thomas was surprised. "Hello, Spencer. What are you doing on Sodor?" "I," steamed Spencer, "am to pick up Sir Topham, Lady Hat, and the Duke and Duchess of Boxford. They are waiting at Kelsthorpe Station. I am to take them to a very important tea at the Scottish castle." Thomas was disappointed. "Why can't I take them in Annie and Clarabel?" he puffed. "Because," huffed Spencer grandly, "you are a small engine, and small engines get small jobs. I am a big engine, and big engines get big jobs." "I can go faster than the wind," chuffed Thomas crossly. "Nonsense," sniffed Spencer. This made Thomas even crosser. "I'll race you to Kelsthorpe Station," Thomas huffed. "Then we'll see." The signal changed. Spencer and Thomas wheeshed away. Thomas was determined to win. The Fat Controller, Lady Hat, and the Duke and Duchess of Boxford were waiting on the platform at Kelsthorpe. Suddenly, there was a thundering and a whooshing. Spencer and Thomas were pumping their pistons and bubbling their boilers to arrive at Kelsthorpe first. Spencer screeched to a halt, but Thomas raced straight through the station. There was a rush of wind so big it blew the Fat Controller's hat right off his head. The Fat Controller was very cross. Thomas reversed slowly back into the station. He was very worried. "Thomas," boomed the Fat Controller, "why were you going so fast? You know engines must go slowly through stations." Thomas felt terrible. "I'm sorry, sir," he peeped. "And," the Fat Controller added, "my hat is blown away. I cannot go without my hat." Thomas felt even worse. "I'll find your hat, sir," Thomas chuffed, "in time for your important tea at the Scottish castle." And he chuffed quickly away. Thomas was sure he'd find the Fat Controller's hat quickly. He looked down the track to the level crossing. There was Bertie the bus. Sir Topham's hat had landed on his roof. "I've found it," Thomas hooted happily. Just then, Gordon whooshed through the crossing so fast that the hat flew into the air. "Cinders and ashes," cried Thomas. "Now I'll have to chase after it." Thomas steamed down the line. Then he saw it. The hat had landed on top of Farmer McColl's scarecrow. "I've found it," Thomas hooted happily. But just then Harold the helicopter rose from the other side of the hill. The great whoosh of his blades blew the Fat Controller's hat into the air and far away. "Cinders and ashes," cried Thomas. "I'll have to chase after it again." Thomas steamed along. He was out of puff and out of places to look. Then he saw it. The Fat Controller's top hat landed on one of the windmill's sails. Thomas hooted happily. But just then, a great gust of wind blew the sails around, and the top hat was blown into the air and far away. "Oh no," tooted Thomas, and he raced after it. It was getting late. Thomas had promised to find the Fat Controller's hat, and he hadn't done that. The wind had taken the hat far away. "You've won, Mr. Wind," peeped Thomas, and he let out a tiny, sad whoosh of steam. Thomas chuffed sadly back towards Kelsthorpe Station. "I wonder if I will ever be a really useful engine again," he wished sadly. Then he saw it. The Fat Controller's hat was just in front of him, floating on the wind. "I was silly to think I was as fast as you, Mr. Wind," Thomas chuffed quietly. "Please, can you help me?" The wind heard Thomas. The Fat Controller's hat floated gently onto Thomas's funnel. Thomas couldn't believe his puff. He chuffed slowly and carefully towards Kelsthorpe Station. When Thomas arrived, everyone was waiting. The Fat Controller gasped. He saw his hat was on top of Thomas's funnel. "You've found my hat, Thomas," he boomed happily. "You are a really useful engine." Thomas blew a happy whoosh of steam, and the top hat flew gently from his funnel onto the platform in front of the Fat Controller. "Sometimes going slowly is as good as going fast," tooted Thomas. Or maybe even better.